All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan. Let me tell you a story of the moral bankruptcy of the Islamic regime of Iran. 3 days ago, some young women representing their country on an international stage refused to sing the national anthem of their country in protest. In a normal country, that would have sparked a debate. People would have criticized them, some would have praised them, but no one would have threatened to kill them. That's exactly what the Islamic regime of Iran did when they declared them wartime traitors. And as soon as that happened, activists around the world started campaigning for those young women to be given asylum in Australia. But as you know, Australia is governed by a far left woke prime minister who is literally the other side of Keir Starmer. And we all know how terribly Keir Starmer is doing. He's destroyed the UK's special relationship with the United States just to appease a tiny segment of his constituency, which doesn't even like him anymore. The Muslims of Britain have already started shifting towards the Greens Party, and they have no intentions to please the Labour Party. But for some reason, Keir Starmer is still appeasing them, hoping come next election season, they will vote for him. Sorry to break the bubble, it's not going to happen. So Anthony Albanese on paper is not as bad, but let me tell you, if the Muslim population in Australia was just as big as it is in the UK, Anthony Albanese would have capitulated to the Muslim vote as well. We can't forget how at the start of the war, he sheepishly said that we stand with the people of Iran, instead of saying that we stand by our allies, the United States and Israel. But other than that, he hasn't been as brazen as Keir Starmer in dissing the United States war on Iran. But as I said, ideologically, he is much in line with Keir Starmer than with Donald Trump. So let me play you the video of Iranian women who refuse to sing the national anthem. So as soon as that happened, people noticed that the women of the Iranian football team were signaling for help. Have a look at this. So the Iranians in Australia, they tried to stop the women's team bus, and they've been asking for them to be given asylum in Australia. Look at this. Some people are saying that they're asking for help now. I don't know how they interpreted that, but apparently that's true. Have a look at this. There you go. What does that mean? Yeah, that's a gesture of help. Help us. That's the gesture of help. So that happened on Friday. Right after that, our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Penny Wong, was questioned about what is Australia doing to help these women. Have a listen.
I want to ask you, Minister, about the Iranian women's football team here in Australia for the Asian Cup. They've been labelled wartime traitors by Iran's state-run TV after earlier in the week they refused to sing their national anthem. They had their final match in Australia tonight. Is it safe for them to return home?
I want to say about the Iranian women's team that it has been really moving for Australians to see them in Australia, and the Matildas swapping jerseys with them was, I think, a very evocative moment. It spoke to solidarity and the way in which sport can, bring us together. We know this regime has brutally murdered many of its own people. We know this regime has brutally oppressed many Iranian women. And we stand in solidarity with the men and women of Iran, and particularly Iranian women and girls. I don't want to get into commentary about the Iranian women's team. Obviously, this is a regime that we know has brutally cracked down on its people.
Appreciate you don't want to put them or their families back home in any greater danger here, but can I ask, has the government been able to have any direct contact with these players without their minders?
I can't comment on that, David. Well, obviously, these are ultimately matters that I would not be decisions I'd be making.
So I can understand, I'm not going to just criticize them for the sake of it. I can understand that it's up to the women to decide whether they want asylum in Australia or not, because we know they might be under a lot of threat from the Islamic regime. Come back or else we'll take care of your family members. It's a terrible moral dilemma. I don't know what I'll do. If you go, you'll get tortured and killed. If you stay back and you gamble with the lives of your loved ones, knowing that the regime is struggling to survive, but they are going to brutally crack down even more. So you don't know. That's a terrible situation. And I really hope that no one ever has to go through that situation. So after that, one of our activists, Drew Pavlov, made this tweet. Let me read that to you. I'm going to read the whole tweet because it's important, because it got noticed by someone. This story is absolutely insane. Senior Iranian regime propagandists threatened to have members of the Iranian women's football team killed because they didn't sing the national anthem at a game in Australia this week. The women were then basically held under armed guard in Australia by Iranian officials to prevent them escaping. They were even seen making SOS signals on the team bus, that one that I showed you earlier. The Australian government inexplicably dragged their feet on saving them right up until the last possible moment. 5 girls just escaped and claimed asylum. The rest face a flight home tomorrow to almost certain persecution. This is the same Australian government which wants to import literal ISIS members. Yes, they're calling on ISIS brides. They're not ISIS brides. They were female ISIS members. They've been trying to bring them back. This government also tried to give 3,000 visas to Gazans. We don't know how many of them are Hamas. And this is Asia's report, our Australian Secret Intelligence Agency's own report, that we don't know how many of them hold Hamas's views or sympathetic to Hamas. I could tell you most of them are sympathetic to Hamas, because 60% of Gaza is sympathetic to Hamas. As per the last survey, only 37% of Gazans oppose Hamas. But they had to be dragged kicking and screaming to protect 5 women fleeing Islamic persecution. So Drew Pavlov made that tweet. Right after that, Donald Trump posted Drew Pavlov's tweet and said asylum. Okay. And then a few minutes after that, Donald Trump posted again. He said Australia is making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran, where they will most likely be killed and actually tortured too. And maybe their family members will still be killed. Don't do it, Mr. Prime Minister. Give asylum. The US will take them if you won't. That's amazing. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then it was 2 a.m. in Australia. Donald Trump called and woke up our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and he said this about the conversation. I just spoke to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia concerning the Iranian national women's soccer team. He's on it. 5 have already been taken care of, and the rest are on their way. Some, however, feel they must go back because they are worried about the safety of their families. Imagine that. That's a terrible predicament to be in, including threats to those family members if they don't return. In any event, the Prime Minister is doing a very good job having to do with this rather delicate situation. God bless Australia, President Donald J. Trump. The good thing is, he did not get rebuked by President Trump like Keir Starmer. That deserves a separate video. I made a video about a week ago how these 2 clowns, Anthony Albanese and Keir Starmer, are ruining our decades-long alliances with the United States of America. The US will remain our strategic ally. I know China is our biggest trading partner, is our biggest export market, but our strategic ally is the United States of America. I will always stand for our alliances with our Western partners, and that is absolutely critical. But the reason why he escaped the anger and wrath of President Donald Trump is very simple. I have no doubt in my mind, Anthony Albanese would have taken the exact same cowardly steps as Keir Starmer if we had a bigger Muslim population. That tells you something. The more Muslims you have in your country, the less control you have over your foreign policy. Keir Starmer is not only destroying its special relationship with the United States, but is also making a fool of the once great country, the United Kingdom. And Anthony Albanese, 100% would have done exactly the same if we had a bigger Muslim population. So the takeaway is, do not import more of them. I hope the rest of the Iranian women also choose to stay behind And I, for one, am glad that I don't have to make that decision because, again, if something happens to their family members, how are these women going to live with themselves? Either way, that just tells you how brutally barbaric this pathetic Islamic regime is that the lefty media is still trying to defend. Channel 4 is trying to defend them. The BBC, I think, is slightly getting its bearings right. I've seen some good videos from the BBC where they're actually pushing back on the IRGC's official propaganda talking points. But Channel 4 is absolutely horrible in the UK. And CNN, can you believe this? CNN is the only American outlet that has been given access inside Iran, and they're saying everything's fine. People are walking about. People are in high spirits. Like, what the hell? Absolutely horrible. I think it's a moment for all these lefty media outlets to have a good, hard look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves why they're siding with the devil just out of their ideological loyalty or dogma. Absolutely pathetic.